introduce the rest of the Hearsay team, Hearsay Do team, for those that haven't met those of us. So Juliana is on the line. Juliana is actually in Germany at the moment, so she may well be lying in bed. I don't know, Juliana. Don't turn on the camera just in case to join us. But great to see you there. And we've also got Amy. Amy's our admin manager here. She keeps things running along. And Liz McKissick is also here. Liz helps out with sales coaching, advisory, and sales consulting. So that's the team. Well, there you are, Juliana. You have turned the camera on. Welcome. Juliana does our work for people, particularly
not
around
in PJs yet. Hi.
Juliana tends to work with our customers who have marketing related challenges. So she's the marketing advisor. Liz and I tend to work more with the sales sides of things, but obviously we all work together very closely. So today, I just want to get through some content that those of you that I've worked with before will have seen some of it, so it should be a bit of a refresher. Those that I haven't worked with before, welcome. I hope this is really useful. We don't want these sessions to be overly structured, so if you have questions, please feel free to ask them along the way. Just take yourself off mute or put your hand up and ask. It's better. Part of the benefit of a small group is it can be interactive rather than having hundreds of people. So feel free to go. So look, one of the things that I've seen over time is that most customers that I've worked with over the last 6 or 7 years have called me with a closing problem. They tend to use language most of the time like we've got a really good pipeline, but we can't get the deals over the line. So that's normally the first conversation that I have with people. Now there are some that go, look, we've got to figure out how to get better at getting some more into the front of the pipeline. But to be really honest, that is the minority of minority of organizations these days. Most organizations, they have a marketing function. They have digital marketing going on, leads coming in, contacts, those kinds of things. But the pipeline seems stuck. So I would say that would be, I haven't recorded every single call, but that would be more than 90% of the initial conversations I have with people. It starts with a closing issue. Got enough opportunities, can't get them over the line. And what I've learned over time is that closing typically isn't the problem. And so today I just want to take you through a model, a construct that you can use to understand how to identify if the customer you're working with is likely to get to the point of closing, of purchasing something from you. Now, if they aren't, it doesn't mean we discard them and we get rid of them. It just means that we don't put them in our forecast to say, I'm forecasting that deal to win next month, or I don't commit as much of my time or the resources and the time of the company. I still need to nurture them. The good friend Grant is on the call. Grant has a great saying, no such thing as no, there's only yes with conditions. And the other saying in sales that you might have heard before is there's no such thing as no, there's only not now. So we do want to nurture the people that aren't going to close, but we want to be able to identify the people that are most likely to want us to be able to help them, so we can invest our time and resources there where we get an impact. So that's the context in which I'm operating. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. Just by way of recap, at Hearsay Do, we have a really strong value around helping people. And to that end, we define sales as providing the buyer with something that helps them achieve their goals, their outcomes or wishes, right? So what I mean by that, and the reason I emphasize this is often when I'm presenting to sales kickoffs or groups of salespeople, what is selling? And a lot of people will say things like, oh, it's closing the deal, it's getting the order, it's meeting your targets. And actually, particularly non-sales people really say that, because a lot of you will be aware that in New Zealand, we don't really value salespeople. We think they're slimy and dirty and no one wants to be in sales. The number of times, you hear that kind of sentiment. I wouldn't want to be a salesperson. But when we help reframe people that it's not about getting the order, it's not about extracting money from the customer, but it's about helping them achieve their goals, their outcomes, and their wishes. It's a service that we offer, not a taking, not a greed thing. It really helps people move through that part of it. So it's all about helping people, and it's about helping them while providing us, the seller, with an acceptable return. And what we mean by that is that all business has to be sustainable and it has to be profitable. So all for that. We're not a charity, and we're not just giving away our intellectual property and all of our know-how or our products or our services for free. That's not sustainable. But what it means is that you need to set for your business what you need, what you consider to be acceptable, and make sure that you can articulate the value that the customer's getting, how you're helping them achieve their goals and outcomes. In such a way that they will give you an acceptable return. So we really do define selling as being helping people achieve the things they want to achieve and doing it in a way that they value, so they're prepared to pay us for that. Just a couple of things that I see, just for background. Look, this is research that came out post GFC, so it's about 10 years old now. For those that haven't heard of it, it was in the Challenger sale, which was came out of CEB, an organisation that's since been bought by Gartner. What they found is that the buying decision, the winning, if you like, of deals was influenced about 9% by price, around about 19% by the brand. So was it a known brand? The delivery experience, so what was known about that? But 53% was based on the sales experience. So what did the customer experience through the process, their buying journey, that made them choose to buy from you? So what that means for us, and again, read the Challenger sale. This presentation isn't about this, but it's just, again, setting the context. It really meant that as salespeople, we want to focus on creating the right kind of sales experience. We want to engage people in the right way. But the right way is to be driven by insights and the value that the customer gets. And so as individuals and as sales teams and as organizations, really focusing on building insight capability is critical. And I've got a vlog that Juliana will be publishing in the next few days, that I'm just working on, which really talks about one of the simple things you can do in a sales context is don't talk about what you do, talk about what you see. And that forces you to think about the insights, what you see happening in the market in which your customers operate, what you see other people like them doing to avoid unknown problems, unknown to the customer you're talking to. They might have been previously unknown to the customer that's taken action. What you see other people doing to make money or save money in different ways. One of the other things out of Challenger sale was, there is still a lot of talk about relationships. I want to build good relationships. We're even hearing it from Chris Luxon at the moment. He's building relationships with the leaders of other parties. What are modern relationships that are different from just access? It's not that someone will just drink coffee with me. Back in the day, back in the 80s and 90s, and obviously long before, but 90s was really when I cut my teeth in sales. The only way that customers could get information was to go through a salesperson. They had to call you or meet with you or ask for a brochure. But of course, now information is ubiquitous. The clients are very knowledgeable. And we know, again, from the research that the Challenger guys did, that customers are around about just under 60% of the way through their buying journey now before they engage with potential suppliers or vendors. So they've got lots of information from the internet, from your competitors who are marketing to them, from people they know. So clients are really knowledgeable. As I just said, they engage suppliers much later in the sales process now, really because of the internet and what it's done over the last, must be 30 odd years now. And they know what they want, or at least they think they know what they want before they engage. So they really do value relationships that help them achieve the things they're trying to achieve. And the way that we help them is that we bring insights. We help them see things that they didn't know, that could have tripped them up in the future. So the last bit of context, this was the article that you probably saw in the invite, those that got an email invite from me, or you may well have seen a link to it on if you saw a LinkedIn post or something. So this was Matthew Dixon and Ted McKenna. They wrote a book called The Jolt Effect, and in the Harvard Business Review, there's an article about customer indecision, and in it, they oopsie, I didn't mean to click on that because it's got a link behind it for when I share it with you later. Let me just close that down again. In that they talk about in a large scale study of more than 2.5 million recorded sales conversations. And as you probably all know now, that there's lots of AI tools that have been deployed for 3 or 4 years where sales conversations on phones are recorded and AI has run through them looking for trends. So spanning both transactional and complex sales, we found that anywhere between 40 and 60% of deals end up lost to customers who express their intent to purchase, but ultimately fail to act. These customers will often go through the entire sales process, consuming valuable seller time and organizational resources, perhaps even engaging in pilots, proof of concepts, only to end up not crossing the finish line. So I don't know, is it, quick question, we don't have polls running. I don't know if anyone's got any comments, but are there people on this call who experience that? They have customers that engage them, express an intent to buy, but don't buy, don't move. In the end, it's a no deal. Anyone? I see one hand up. Remy, welcome. I can see you there. Saw another yes from Paul. David, thumbs up. It's a real problem, and over the years in sales we have we've often talked about doing nothing as the biggest competitor, and it depends what research you look at to find out what the do nothing percentage is. This article goes on to talk about the difference between customers staying with the status quo and customers not being able to make a decision. So they're two different things. When someone could make a decision, get to the end of their buying process and go, actually, we're not going to change, versus those in that B2B world today where there's 6, 7, 8, as many as 9 buyers, 6 to 9 is the average, they say now, in a B2B sale of people involved in the buying decision. So they get to that point of consultation and they can't come to a decision. So indecision makes up about half of the no deals, roughly, and status quo makes up about the other half. So it's a really significant problem. And this, what I'm seeing is this is still true. And this is the part of another presentation that I won't bore you all with today, but this came out of a conference I went up to, Gartner, in 2018 when we could still travel pre-COVID. And they talked about how most of us map out the customer's buying journey, with these middle parts as some kind of the customer's prioritizing the need, they're defining the requirements, and they get through to buying and evaluating the impact. But in reality, what the customer's having to go through is all of this mess around the outside. It's not a linear journey. It's very complex for them. It's hard for them to navigate. So again, the purpose of this slide is just to paint a picture. If you think your customer is just walking through the middle here, through the prioritized need, defined requirements, you're wrong. Your customer is going through a crazy amount of going back in the journey, going forward in the journey, jumping a step, jumping back a step, and all over the place. It's very difficult. And to make it even harder in that B2B world, if there is half a dozen buyers in the buying group, they're all having to navigate the same process at different times and at different pace. And really importantly, the same bit of research that fed into this said that 77% of buyers reported high purchase difficulty. And what they meant by that was it was hard to purchase in their organization. And if you go onto YouTube and watch presentations from these authors, they pose the question, how many people in the audience have tried to buy something in their organization, and how much fun was that? Like it's a horrible thing to try and do. And out of this, they said there was a significant number of buyers who said that even though the projects that they embarked on were completed on time, delivered the expected business benefits, all good, they would never do it again. It was so hard, so many late nights, too difficult dealing with security. Sorry, Richard. Too difficult dealing with legal compliance, too difficult dealing with, all of the other things that you have to do to get a project over the line, that people literally said, I got the business benefit I wanted, but I wouldn't do it again. So it's a real problem on the customer side as well. It's just hard. It's just really, really hard for customers to buy. So really quickly, every sale has 5 obstacles, and getting down to the mental model I'm going to give you now. This is a quote of Zig Ziglar's: no need, no money, no hurry, no desire, no trust. Those of you that have led sales teams will know that the reps will often come back and say the customer didn't have a budget. I always say to them, that's right, we knew that. No one ever has any budget. That's an assumption that we make going into it. So what is it that they have, and how do we uncover why it is that they would want to move and make a buying decision? You will have heard of old qualifying models, things like budget, authority, need, time frame. Again, this was a model from the 90s. You'd come back into the office as a field rep and you had to answer to the sales manager. Did you know if the customer had budget? Who had the authority to purchase? What was their need and what's their time frame? BANT was one of the models that I was taught on, and if you could answer those questions, then you kind of you had to do some work around whatever it was in the company you're in to get proposals out or close a deal or have a close plan. But budget, authority, need, and time frame was really the standard way that people used to qualify deals. But according to that slide right before from Zig Ziglar, we know that every deal has 5 major problems. There is no budget, there is no authority, there is no need, there is no time frame, and there is no, I've forgotten what the other one was, no desire or trust. So this is where we start to get into where we found the people that are most successful get the most success. And the first P that we're going to talk about today is priorities. So understanding what the customer's trying to achieve at a business level and having a link from the business priority on their statement of intent, their annual plan, whatever it is, their website, the conversation you've got. What is the thing that the organization is focused on that's important to them? How are other people's priorities in the organization aligned to those, and how am I, the buyer, how is the person you're talking to, how are their priorities aligned to the wider stakeholder group, and how are they all aligned to the business priorities? And the key message that I want you to take away from today is that if you don't know ultimately what the customer's trying to achieve at a business level, and if you can't articulate it in their words, you will still close deals, no problem with that. But what you'll struggle to do is accurately be able to know when the deals are going to close and know which ones are going to close. You'll still get some over the line 100% because there's enough people out there that are going to buy and they're going to like what you do. But in terms of knowing where to focus your time, your effort, your energy, your resources, and what to put in your pipeline, you have to start by being able to articulate what the organizational priorities are. Now, for reference, this stuff that we talk about here, this is largely taken from the value selling model. So challenger sale and value selling are the two that we kind of blend together to contextualize and make work for New Zealand. So if you're interested in more around this stuff, it's value selling. There's a book on that. I've found so many presentations online, but certainly there's a book that you can grab. So priorities really are the gears that drive deals. The other things that get things done. If you've got to achieve something, and I'll give you a quick personal story at the moment. And my wife and I have been talking for about 3 years how the carpet under our ranch side or by our deck, which gets all the sun, is getting faded and more faded. And this year it started to get beyond faded. And we've been saying for ages, oh, we should replace it. We should replace it. Now our last child is about to leave home. Happy days. We've decided that we're going to downsize, and so we have a priority of getting a new house. And guess what? It's taken us about 2 weeks to make the decision on recarpeting before we list the house. So lots of things are good ideas, lots of things have payback. And I know it's a personal story, but in businesses, lots of things that customers could do to improve their experience in their business, but they'll only act if the thing they're going to work on is going to help them achieve their priorities, help them deliver the thing that they've got to get done. They deliver power to the drivetrain. So hence the picture I used here was gears intentionally. So if you're talking about priorities, not ROI, if you're talking about what the customer said they need to get done, you'll have powerful conversations. If you ring up and say, did you get my proposal? What did you think of it? Terrible conversation, weak, boring, hopeless. If you ring up and say, last time we spoke, you said you had to do this by February next year. We agreed that to be live or to have whatever you needed in that time, you needed to have completed your training by January. How are you going with that? Have you got those plans in place? Powerful conversation compared to, did you get my quote? Do you want to go ahead or not? You're talking about the things that the customer's wanting to achieve in the timeframes that they've talked about. And they do enable speed shifts. So when people, talk about my deals are stuck, if you can go back to the conversations around, you said you had to get these things done and you had to get them done by this time. If that's true, here's the things that you need to do to get over the line, to get, and by over the line, not to the order, to realizing business value. So how do you know if an opportunity is real? And again, this is largely taken from value selling. The customer has known priorities. They're owning the solution, so they're trying to solve it. You're helping them solve it, but it's their solution, not yours, is critical. And again, there's a whole bunch of content around that. And you've got a plan to business outcome, not a plan to close. The days, and I know some of the people on this call have worked in enterprise sales for multinational companies, and we've all had to have close plans, and we had to report up to Australia or Singapore or the US. How are you going to close this outsourcing deal? How are you going to? We had to write all of these close plans. The critical thing here is that a good plan is agreed with the customer, and it's to get to the business outcome that they wanted, not to get to the order in the door, right? So if you have those things, if you know the priorities, if you can see the customers owning the solution and you're working with them to resolve, and there's a plan that you've agreed with them on what they need to do to get to the end state, then I would say you have a real opportunity. Just for a little bit of nuance and for the math geeks here in the room, I intentionally put multiplication signs in here, not plus signs, because of course, if it's multiplication, not only is it exponentially greater, but if one of them is zero, then the equation is zero. And that's not to say that you should stop working on it. It just that focuses you on what I should do next. If I know what the customer's trying to achieve and I'm working well with them, but we haven't agreed a plan, the next thing I should do is go and work through the plan. What does go live look like? How are you going to get there in the end? And I know one of the people registered for this was a chap. Let me just see if they have actually joined. Doesn't look like it. A chap, James Hutchins, who's now based up in Singapore, but he had a deal literally this time of the year where the customer said in November, "We're not going to do it. We're going into the Christmas shutdown." For all of our, it was an IT project for all our IT projects, and he just went back to them and said, "No problem. Your plan called for going live and I think it was around March, so you'll need to be deployed in February. You need to train your staff in January." That's the timeline, and the customer came back within about 48 hours and said, "We'll buy it now, thanks," because they couldn't shift the end date. So just communicating to the customer what the change, if they didn't execute now, they weren't going to hit the go live the time frame that they wanted to. That was the critical thing there. I'm just going to break this slide down for you over the next few slides, but let me just say, and I'll send this to you. You don't have to try and ingest all of this. Is far too much information, but most conversations start at the solution level here down on the left in the blue. People are talking about what they do. Customers are asking questions about what it is that your solution does. They enter the conversation with questions like, what is it that you do? Does your product do these things? How much does it cost? How long does it take? Who else are your customers? Is there a cut down option? The classic Kiwi, is there an option without frills? I don't think I need that. They're the kinds of questions you get from customers, and what we want to do is shift it to, how are you planning on solving this? What's the ideal outcome for you? What's the ideal outcome for other stakeholders? What other options do you have? Is doing nothing an option? So how do we do that? We bounce the conversation from solution back to the business priority. So let me break that whole big chevron slide down. Again, you'll all get a copy of it, so don't worry about trying to ingest it all. The key thing is, the people that we observe who are the most successful have really good conversations with their customers about what the customer's trying to achieve. So these are the kinds of questions. Now, I wouldn't say anyone should use these questions. These are literally prompts for the kinds of questions that you should formulate for your context. There might be some of you that these questions are perfect, but have a think about in your context, what are you going to ask people? So critically, what is it that has to be done? Who has to do it? Why are those things being done? By when? So what do you have to do? By who? Why is that important? When does it have to be done by? So talking about those things. Now, if you're selling water bottles and, oh, we have to buy water bottles. No one has to buy water bottles. That's not a business problem, right? People have to hydrate their team, or they need water bottles to put sponsorship branding on for a conference they're going to. What is the actual thing, the business priority, the thing that they've got to get done, and why is that important? One of the really big ones here, and this is maybe a conversation. Maybe we schedule an Ask Me Anything or a conversation with everyone at another time. But who else cares about this? And I would say, as a sales rep selling to teams, when you have the customer that says, hey Dave, can you come and present to my boss? I've been talking to them for 6 months and I haven't been able to get it over the line. But if you could present to them, then that would really help. I would say that's a massive red flag, because I'm being asked to go and work with someone who's been arguing with their boss for 6 months and can't get what they want, and I'm instantly in a situation, or potentially I'm in a situation, where I'm hooked to someone who doesn't have, the credibility or authority. So again, in the business priority conversation, what has to be done? Who else cares about this? Like, is this really an important thing across the organization? What other initiatives support this priority? Now, this is important. We're about to use the example I used before. We're about to spend money on carpet. If a painter turned up and said, at the moment, or we engaged a painter, let's say, and they said to us, oh, what else are you doing to get ready? We said, oh, we've already ordered new carpet. Then they instantly know that this is a priority. We're already spending money on this, right? There is a deal. What other initiatives are going on to support this thing that you're talking about? It's just another pointer that it's actually a priority. People spend money on the things that are important to them, not what gives them an ROI. Right? How many people on this call could do multiple projects in their business today that would all have ROI, but you're doing very few of them, right? Because ROI is table stakes. It's what are the big things I've got to get done. Is this the most important thing we should be talking about? Again, trying to flush out, are you talking with someone about something that's just not that important? Is this the most important thing you're working on? So they're the flavor of questions that will help you uncover the priority. I don't know if anyone wants to share any of the questions that they would ask in their context to help try and uncover what the business priority, the actual need that the customer has is. Was good England, wasn't it? What the customer has is. Not sure I liked how much you're laughing at that, Paul.
Hey Dave, it's Liz here. I think sometimes when I've been talking to clients, they often talk about multiple priorities, and because everything's important, you've got a lot on their plate. So one of the questions I really like to ask is, what is your number one priority and why? And then putting this business priority lens across it, because then at least you're getting a priority of the priorities. Otherwise, priorities can also just be initiatives or things to do.
Through that. Thanks, Liz.
It's not answering your question directly, but it underlines what you said. I have found, and I got this on a negotiation book that I read, that when I'm not getting a reply back from the client, so I've sent them an email, we agreed all these things, it's great. A week goes by, I don't get a reply. And I send them another email, and I might not get a reply. I have found that if I say in that email, hi, just checking in, I wanted to see if this is a priority for you or not. 99 times out of 100, I get a reply to that email. And supposedly the idea is...
Sorry, Paul, you just broke up there. 99 times.
Out of 100, they reply to that email. When I ask them, is this still a priority for you, or is it a priority? I get a response. from that email. It's a really powerful wheel. Supposedly, it also gives them the power to say no, and that's part of the reason why they will respond, because they can equally say no. But it's that priority word to get a response out of a person, and I found very powerful.
Thank you. And we shouldn't be afraid to ask the customer outright, is what we're talking about a priority? And I do think the word priority but priority and insights are the two words that are a bit like strategy 10 years ago. Everyone's using them all the time now. But if you can really keep focus on that word and what it actually means, what is really the number one priority, as Liz said, of all the things that you've got to get done, what are the most important? It's critical. Anyone else? So once the customer's talked about what they're trying to achieve, if they're a private enterprise, it's typically going to be, we want to increase our market share or profitability or whatever. It's normally a financial return. If it's government, it tends to be, something around the service delivery to citizens, and there's a whole range of things in between. But once you've got those kinds of conversations, the next part of the conversation is moving on to the second P, which is the problems. What's stopping you get that thing done that you've got to get done? You've got to open a new office in Australia. You've got to launch a new product. There's a new policy initiative out of the government department. There's a change in legislation that I've got to comply with by this date. What are the things that are stopping me get those things done? What would you change if you could? I have asked this next question. What would you magic wand away? Which again is another good use of England, but I've literally used that construct. And funnily enough, the vast majority of time, the person, if they answer, will answer it with a person. It's another person. Oh, I'd get rid of. I'm going to pick on security again, Richard and Darren on the call. I'd get rid of the security department. They're slowing me down, or something like that. Sorry, guys, I shouldn't pick on you. Does everyone else agree that this is the challenge? Is there anything that you're avoiding doing right now? So again, these are just questions to help us understand, is the thing that I've got to get done, what's holding it up, and does everyone else agree that this is what's holding it up? Because in my experience, there's certainly been times where the person I'm talking to has been the person holding things up according to other people in the buying group. So really trying to understand what's going on, where do things fit. And then the last P is the payback. Why would you bother addressing the challenge? Essentially the value, like what's the return you get? What is addressing this challenge? If you can solve that problem, are you sure you can deliver the thing that you want to deliver? Can you measure the value of addressing the challenge? What happens if it doesn't get addressed, and who else understands the value of addressing the problem? Now, the point I'd make here is I'm preaching to the choir with this, telling you how to suck eggs. Don't have your questions and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's a conversation, and you're going to bounce around, and the customer will bounce around between, what the things that are challenges, the things that are priorities, where they think the value is going to be, other parts of value they think they might be able to realize but not sure. So the conversation will have to flow. Please don't create that environment for your customers where it feels like an interrogation. I met with a good friend of mine yesterday who has been doing career coaching for forever now, for years and years, and we were just talking about the evolution of coaching, how coaching for years has been very focused on helping the coachee, if you like, solve the problem themselves, but how people in business don't have time for that. And she's noticed a really big change now, that she doesn't have the luxury of asking lots of questions to help the person solve their own problem, that she really has to jump into an advisory or a mentoring role and help give people options. So, make sure that as you're going through the conversation, you can use language like, have you thought about these things? Or other customers are doing this. Is that something that's important to you? Other people have these priorities. Other people in your role are focused on these initiatives. So make sure that you're feeding the conversation, that it doesn't feel like an interrogation. So the key thing here is, and I have a lot of the customers that we've coached over the years have said to me that they write 3P at the top of their page for their note taking. when there are meetings with customers, and it's just their prompt to make sure that through the conversation they're helping, that they're focusing on making sure they capture the things that are important to the customer. What's the business priority? What are the problems? What's stopping them achieve it? What's the payback? What's the value of doing something? And the more they're focused on those, the more they can gauge whether this is a real deal that I should be investing lots of time and effort in, or whether it's just a good idea, something the customer's interested in. They've given me a meeting, but they're not really going to be acting anytime soon. And the more, if I was able to, well, I could, but if I won't, if I was to pull up the gears slide again, the more that you can then align your conversation when you're in the presentation mode, the proposal mode, the closing mode, the more that you're aligned to the priorities, the problems, and the payback. And clearly you can draw a link between these things that you said you have to get done. I'm helping you achieve those things. The more likely you are to have a customer who won't just stick with the status quo because you've shown them that you can help them achieve, and you'll also help them get through that indecision. You'll know whether the customer is more likely than not to continue to the point of purchase. So I would say to all salespeople in this day and age that for every resource that you focus on improving your proposing and your closing, spend more resource on improving your qualifying, understanding the customer's priority problems and paybacks, because that leads to proposals that deliver priorities, not quotes for people to buy drink bottles or whatever it is that you offer. You're proposing a plan to help the customer get to the actual outcome that they want. I've got just two last things I just want to share with you really, really quickly. One of the things that a number of buyers have said to me over time is that it still surprises them how many salespeople don't send a follow-up note. And so one of the really important things to do is that you, when you come back from a meeting with the customer, just go back to them with the things that you've talked about. And again, forgive me if I'm preaching to the choir, but I think it's a real simple trick that salespeople miss all the time. It does set you apart. I was surprised to hear how many people don't do this, but it sets you apart. Schedule time to do it, and don't leave it till the end of the day, because that 4 to 5 window, you'll have a bunch of things to do. Schedule time right after the meeting to go back to the customer. And I just recommend that people use this most simple construct. What's the priority? So, hi, Dave. When we met, we spoke about this being your situation, and this is what you want to achieve. This is stopping you achieve it, just in bullet points. You said that the value of solving that problem means you'll be able to get there in this time frame, save this much money, launch new product, whatever it is. We agreed that you want to be live in this time, so working backwards, got to tick off these things. Sorry, that's the proposed approach. Here's the way you're thinking about resolving it, and then the plan. We talked about being live in this time frame, so working backwards, and just doesn't have to be screeds of pages. Just capture that in a note. The one other bit of advice I'd add to that is, in the plan, make sure you record the things that the customer said that they were going to do as well, because that's a good signal as to whether they are really invested in this thing or whether they're just getting you as a sales rep run around. Before I go over to questions and answers, I'm not going to go through this next bit of content in any detail with you, but I'm going to share it with you in the content. Some time ago, I had a customer that was really struggling to know when to present. And so I just drew this up as a simple model for them. If you think about the journey that the customer goes through when they're buying, they become aware that they've got a problem, they start learning about solutions, they do their impact evaluation, their business case, if you like. They're bought in, they're then figuring out how to buy, and then they buy. And the purpose of this model was to say that because this particular customer, their metric, they actually had a metric of how many quotes they got out each week. So what they were doing is, even if a customer was only, very early on here, they hadn't done their business case, they were just learning about things, the quote was going out already. And of course, they had terrible close rates. Nothing was really going on. So I just put this together, and we sat down and I worked with them to go, well, how do you know where the customer is in this journey? So, assuming this is the journey up the top here, if they're aware, these are some behaviors you might see from your customer. as a salesperson, what should you be doing at the same time, right? So if the customer's aware, this is what they're doing. If you know that's where they are, what should you be doing? And there's just a slide for each of these. And again, I'm not going to click on it for each of these here with ideas on things that if you identify your customers at that point in the process, these are the things that you could be doing. The biggest piece of advice I give people is don't propose too soon. The proposal should merely be confirming the priority, the problem, the payback, the plan, the things that we've already talked about. So that's just going to be chucked in on the back there for you to go through. Again, a bit like the question slides, the chevrons. I don't think for a moment that I'll have these things right for every organisation, but it's worth you taking the time to sit down with your cup of coffee and go, right, what are good priority questions for me? What are good problem questions? And equally, roughly speaking, how would I know what stage the customer is in? What behaviours would I observe from them to know that they hadn't made it to the bought-in phase, or that they're trying to figure out how to buy? What evidence of that would I see? So that's me, everybody. Priority, problem, payback. I just say to people all the time, keep having the conversations about those. What is it you're trying to achieve? What's stopping you achieve it? What's the value? What's the payback from solving that problem and actually delivering that priority? Totally open for questions. Comments, feedback? Is it are people pleased they've given up their lunch hour, or are they going, jeepers creepers, Dave?
Yeah, I think for me, Dave, the most interesting part was the priority. So, I've got any number of deals that are going on where they gather information, they get indicative pricing, we understand their situation, their problem, the implication, the need, all that good old spin stuff. But, then you get to, we won't be making a decision until, a few months in the future. So understanding where the priority sits in relation to all the other things they're working on, I think, is critical to understanding when you could expect to close it and when you should start forecasting it as a real number. I think the other thing about some of the things that came out of this, from old school, as you and I know from a long time ago, a lot of things about TAS in there. What's the compelling event? This has to happen by a certain date, or this dire situation is going to happen. So I found it all really very interesting. Thank you. And perhaps a bit of a contemporary update for an old dog like me. So thank you very much.
You're
very
welcome.
Worthwhile.
Thanks, Dave. And look, it's a good point you make, because a lot of people still do say to me, is TAS still relevant? And the answer that I give is, well, kind of. So yes, there needs to be a reason for people to make a change, but often that reason is not an event anymore. It's a thing they've got to get done rather than a particular one-off event. There's been a mandate from government to deliver this service, or whatever it is. So yeah,
I think you've got to be a little bit more agile in your sales process as well, whereas TAS was very
rigid,
and quite laborious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Dave, also.
Hi, David. Thank you for the insights. I have got a point here that most of this is very true for the B2B market, right? But when it comes to the B2C market, dealing with consumers directly, especially offering a service, a lot of this changes actually.
It does, and when we were chatting just before we started, you talked about the environment you operate, and your clients are coming to you, and they're often individuals, or they're almost all individuals, aren't they?
Exactly.
Who are looking
80%,
to progress.
80-90%.
Yes, and so I think still the key here is the situation. If you don't mind me saying, that I understood you'd said, is you've got a lot of people starting the conversation with you, but still doing nothing. So that's still the problem.
Yeah, they just. I mean, I'll put it this way: just follow the planet. Basically, we follow up them with emails. We send them information we're supposed to send them. We message them, text them, call them. We try everything, and then without them feeling that we are desperate for their business, we contact them once a week, probably follow. We know have some timeline because we process visas. So let us say somebody's visa is finishing in 3 months. We know, right, this is the right time to follow with them. We do all that, but then a stage comes where it's like they are avoiding us, and
Yes.
that's how it looks like sometimes. So it's hard to, because dealing with a person, a human, and you can't get through to them through the email, they don't respond. And some of my clients are very young. They're very young, as in they are starting from early 20s. 80% of them are early 20s to mid 20s. These are people who don't actually like emails. They prefer messaging, voicemails, or talking to them, because they're all on the social media. They prefer to call them, message them on WhatsApp rather than send them an email. They don't appreciate that. So we try everything. We work according to the way the Generation Z works or the millennials work, but we still feel a big issue going on right now with that. So that is something I was looking for a solution for that, actually.
Yeah, look, and apologies because this is very B2B focused. But there are definitely some things that I'd be, and maybe we pick it up offline. I'm happy to spend some time and I can talk through with you some of the things. I think the overarching principle is the same. People are coming to you, and if your first conversation with them is not focused around why they're talking to you, what they're trying to achieve, and why that's important, then it becomes difficult to follow them up. It becomes difficult to go back and say, hey, you wanted to have your residency sorted by this date. How are you? Is that still a priority? You're stuck in the are you there? Trying to trying to get through to them. But let's schedule some time. And I'd love to chat with you a bit more about that.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome. Okay, well, hey, look, if there's no more questions, I think Amy has probably shared in the chat just a link to a feedback form. If you've got a minute, feel free to please do give us some feedback on what was useful about this. We have got a date set in for what will probably be the second last for the year, Wednesday the 22nd. Slightly different in the Sell More, we're calling this the Sell More webinar series. The next one, I've invited a good friend of mine to join us, a chap called Darren Whitaker Barnett. He was the founder of Who's On Location, a software as a service company here in Wellington. He worked that for about 10 or 11 years before selling it about 2 years ago. And moving on, he's got a great story to tell around what it was like to build a business over that period of time and to exit. But importantly, and one of the reasons I really get a lot of value from talking to Darren is he won the Salesperson of the Year award. I think it was about 1999, the last year that award still existed in New Zealand before it became the Entrepreneur of the Year award. So he was measured against the sales performers in every industry, in every sector in New Zealand, and he topped that and took away the gong. So really, really insightful guy to talk to about selling an enterprise and building a business. So look out for an invite to that. Again, that'll be the 22nd. And if there's any particular topics around sales that anyone would like us to cover, let us know in the feedback form, and we're happy to set up sessions and chat through stuff. So thank you for your various thumbs up and smiles and the comments that are coming through. Really appreciate that. Look forward to catching up with more of you. Great to see some old friends, and great to see some new friends, and great to see some friends I haven't met in person before. So great to see you all. Enjoy your day.